Everyone is talking about Crimson Desert. Naturally, right? Everyone has an opinion on the next big thing. And so, naturally, a lot of new people are finding out about this game, and some of them have the opinion it's too good to be true. And, well, if you're new to Crimson Desert and you have never heard anything about this, understandable actually, because it does sound too good to be true. But I am personally of the extreme opinion that it actually is not too good to be true, and everything that they are promising, everything that we have seen, is actually completely inside of expectations.
So Crimson Desert is right around the corner. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen this level of hype for a game in a while. It is reaching the levels of hype that start to worry me because I have seen what these sorts of expectations on a game do. And as a person who is
I am not worried about this in the slightest. The hype is massive, don't get me wrong, yes. And the expectancies are big, but they're understandable. Everyone knows that you can do a lot of things in Crimson Desert. There's gonna be banking, learning abilities, skills, swappable characters, different kind of weapons, interaction with the environment, climbing, and all of those good things. But this is not really too much, considering no one is really expecting that the abilities that you use in this game are going to be groundbreaking, completely new, game changers, never before seen mechanics and concepts. No one's expecting that. Everyone is expecting something that we already know, but done in a really good way, in a really fun way. And this is why I personally think that Crimson Desert will not suffer from the over expected catastrophe that some other games suffer, that they cannot live up to the hype.
tremendously excited for this game. I think that it is very much up my alley and probably a lot of the regulars on the channel as well. I feel like a lot of the conversations I've seen online really don't get to the point of what the game is and who it's for, and instead focus on the incredible technology of the Black Space engine, the proprietary engine that Pearl Abyss has built for.
I have never heard anyone actually really talk about the engine too much. Only Digital Foundry, they're a tech channel.
For the game and how great it looks. People talk a lot about the systems and how huge the world is and how many things you can do. And they don't really drill down neither into a lot of the problems that the game has from this recent preview event and from when I played it before that. And most importantly, what the game actually is. And I'm afraid that a lot of people are going to just want to jump into the next big thing that looks incredible and come away sorely disappointed with what it actually is, being a game that maybe isn't what they signed up for at all. So even just from the combination of previews and what I've played of the game, I want to make that clear. This isn't the next Witcher 3. This is not the next Red Dead Redemption 2.
Who the hell expected The Witcher or even Red Dead Redemption? I have a feeling the only people left that are worried about Crimson Desert at this point are people who want to equate it to things that it should not be equated to, which is a little bit strange.
It is an incredibly ambitious project that, while it tackles a lot of interesting things, its core gameplay is meant to appeal to a specific group of people, and to reach some of its ambitions and its commitment to things like immersion, it does have a lot of awkward jank to it. And here at the top of the video, I want to reiterate, I'm not making this video in order to trash the game, because I am very excited for it. But I do think it's worth taking a step back and actually looking at it and who this game is for. And hopefully you'll come away from this video with your expectations more in check, a better idea of if the game is for you, and especially what you should be looking out for when it comes to reviews before you commit both time and money to a game that maybe just isn't for you. And
I'm already committing money. With all the money I have saved not buying AAA slop like Marathon, Borderlands 4, Dragon Age The Veilguard, and so many others. I got spare change, buddy, to buy Crimson Desert, okay?
we've heard it a ton before. A game for everybody is a game for nobody. And I don't think that Crimson Desert is a game for nobody, but that means there's some people that just aren't gonna like it. By the way, hi, I'm Mug.
There's always someone who doesn't like something. I feel having a discussion about these extraordinary 0.1%ers of the world is never useful. When something is unanimously liked by everyone, yes, there's going to be people who dislike it. Doesn't matter if their critique is valid, invalid, or random or stupid. There's always going to be these people. And when something is more liked, heavily liked, like Crimson Desert, there's not really real need, in my opinion, for someone to come out and say, well, but there are some people who this is not going to be for. We know. I'm excited for this game, but maybe when I play it, it's going to be like, this is cool and everything, but I kind of don't feel it. I kind of don't feel like it, so, moving on. Maybe that happens. I doubt it, but, it can happen.
And if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. You are looking great. You look like you could be in the Black Space Engine yourself. I know I'm not looking the best. I'm a bit sick, but hey, that happens. You know the usuals. If you like the video and what I'm talking about, if you think it's something worth sharing,
like
hit the
video
button.
right
It's the best
now.
thing you can do.
Thank
And speaking of sharing, it doesn't matter if Crimson Desert ends up being your cup of tea or not, because I want you to also judge if this video sponsor is your cup of tea, because this is a game that comes from a passionate team of developers that really want. So let's get down to business and talk about what Crimson Desert actually is. And it is a single-player action-adventure game set in an open world, the open world of Pywell, which is a massive land in which you take control of Cliff and go through a story while exploring the world, taking on side quests and things like that. What it isn't is an RPG, and I think that's a very important thing to talk about. Now, that might be...
Sounds like, I don't know, this sounds like an RPG. You're playing as a dude and your mission is to do a specific thing. Sounds like a role-playing game. Now, granted, role-playing game nowadays doesn't mean anything, because there's literally no distinction between, for example, like Skyrim roleplay and a game where or deeper things. There's not a lot of distinction between them. So a lot of these tags we put on games are kind of pointless at this point.
A contentious statement. Some people might consider it an RPG, but many others won't. And because RPG is a pretty broad term. I would liken it a lot more to something like The Legend of Zelda or even something like Red Dead Redemption. Zelda, I think, is the best comparison though, not just because of the whole islands in the sky with puzzles and gliding down onto the world, but because there is no outright leveling in the game. Progression of your skill trees and your abilities comes primarily from exploration reward, from finishing different quests, from actually engaging with the world, and from going out there and finding cool stuff that you can use. So while there is progression and there are rewards of loot and armor with different specifications that will make you stronger, there is no grinding in this game. There is no way of you just sitting down and eliminating enemies over and over and over again and leveling up and becoming...
Wait, I'm pretty sure there is grinding in this game, but not of the traditional sense of like leveling up like that. Yes, but there's still grinding. You can do a bunch of things, aka grind a bunch of smaller things so you can do the bigger thing easier.
Stronger. It's not that sort of game, and from what we understand, a lot of the gear will end up being side grades or specializations and different weapon types more than just straight up upgrades, as if it were an ARPG sort of thing. Loot is a bit more special than that, and so is your overall power progression. And I think that matters a lot, by the way, because some people are going to have a different expectation of the game, maybe something more along the lines of a Witcher sort of situation. And that is not the case here. Instead, a lot of that progression comes from going out of the beaten path and just finding cool stuff out there that will allow you to become stronger. And again, that's very similar to a lot of how The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom worked. And it's something that I love about those games. They have a lot in common in the sense that both of those Zelda games are very systemic driven games, where the biggest emphasis of the whole game was on rewarding your exploration throughout. And Crimson Desert seems to be imitating that as well. But that brings us to another question, and something that I tried to stress a lot in my preview of the game about 7 months ago, but bears repeating. A lot of the progression and the power structure of the game is
Rapier woman, yas.
on a character action game. Think something more along the lines of a Devil May Cry or a Bayonetta than some of the more simplified combat systems we have seen in other games. Now again, to me, that's fantastic, but to a lot of people, that might rub them the wrong way. And that's because Crimson Desert has a bit of an awkward combination of those things. In a character action game, you traditionally fight enemies that are relatively strong and that force you to use a lot of your arsenal in order to take them down. From what I've played and what I've seen of the recent previews of the game, that doesn't seem to be the case. Really, the enemies where you're meant to use your arsenal are bosses, and most of the regular enemies that you face are kind of cannon fodder, which is not common for this gameplay style.
Is it not? I feel that this seems a lot random. I feel it's very common, in fact. What do you mean? There's a ton of games where you have that look like this, where there's like Bayonetta is an example of this. The cannon fodder is not really hard, and the bosses are different and special. Like, what do you mean? This feels like a strange take, to say the least.
In that regard, it kind of falls in line more with, shocker, Black Desert. The big problem with this character action system is that it can be very complicated. The stronger you get, the more access to moves and weapons and things that you learn throughout the game. It's not just going to make your character better with simple combos. It's not going to be like a Muso game where they just let you press square one more time in order to do an extra attack at the end of your combo. A lot of these moves for the open world action adventure genre have complex inputs to execute them. Think something more along the lines of Street Fighter or some of the more complicated things you can do in Bayonetta. And those can lead to wrestling moves and suplexes and Izuna drops and cool combos and using your powers in the middle of a fight. But the problem is that if you're not willing to engage with some of the complexities that the game puts forth, the combat might not be very rewarding to you, especially with one.
Wait, what? Is the complaint about this game that it's literally not even a paraplegic can fucking do it? Oh, come on. Is that really it? Is that really as far as we are willing to take this? Oh, maybe it's not for you spiel? Oh, because the combat may actually require you to use 2 brain cells instead of 1? Really? Really? We're going here. Wow. Wow, that's slightly disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. If this is your concern about the game, then, well, good thing it's not for everyone, because making something too easy makes it unrewarding and dull. That's always the problem with trying to make it for everyone. The concept of making something for everyone, I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think most people think it's a bad thing. In fact, it's probably a good thing to try and make something for everyone. But the problem in gaming means that you need to accommodate for the lowest of the low player base. The good players don't need to accommodate for them because they're just gonna get it anyway. But there's always gonna be a group of people who are gonna fucking press triangle instead of square 15 times in a row until they understand it. And when you make a game for them, you're effectively making it so you can button smash and still fucking play it to a even decent extent, and that's just sad. That's boring. If you're not trying, there's no reward. We have been through this millions of times. When there is no effort, rewards feel meaningless because they are meaningless.
One of the big questions here, which is how necessary are those cool combat moves and that progression going to be throughout the game? Because maybe in order to keep everybody happy, you can just button mash your way through most of everything, and really at that point a lot of the power progression just becomes you feeling really cool if you choose to engage with the cool but complicated to execute moves. And at that point, you're really playing the game in order to not look very flashy if you're not using them, and to potentially be forced into using some of those things for one of the over 70 different boss fights in the game, which again, totally for me, but maybe not for you. And this is where I think we have to talk about the biggest problem with the game that I've seen and that I experienced firsthand, where a lot of the clunkiness and the jank kind of comes in.
Maybe fucking your sister's not exactly for you, but it may be for some people, and this is what we have to live with. How about no? How about fucking no?
And that is the controls. Crimson Desert has, from what I can see, a tremendous commitment to immersion, to allowing Cliff or the other two playable characters to really exist in this world and kind of take your time, play it slow, talk to pretty much every NPC, just an attention to detail that's rarely seen in games. But in order for the game to have that commitment to immersion, to small interactables everywhere, to being able to pick up so many different things in the world and interact with them, that comes with a price to pay. And I think that focus mode is a great way of explaining this. And what I'm about to explain isn't even the most weird or complex series of inputs you have to do in the game, but it's one that you're going to do a lot. And that is, if you hold L1 while your sword is sheathed, you will enter focus mode. And focus mode allows you to kind of pinpoint with a little indicator on screen something in the environment, and it will show you what you can do contextually with it. That might sound like just a fun optional thing if you want to immerse yourself in the game, but it is 100% required for a lot of different things. For example, precision jumping.
Yes, we know. And the obvious thing I will say about this is, and?
Requires you to just aim where you want to jump and then press the button and make sure that it doesn't accidentally, instead of letting you jump, try and make you interact with something around the area, which is weird and can be frustrating. But more importantly, focus mode is...
Well, yeah, but that's actually just a bug. Fault of the game, not an actual intended game mechanic. If your complaints about the gameplay not being good is, oh, this clear bug is not an intended game mechanic, but you have to deal with it, that's not really...
used in combat as well. Even back when I played the game, one of the key things from the tutorial was teaching people that you could enter focus mode and lift very heavy objects using your powers. This was used during the mission to kind of place these giant flags in place, but at the same time, you could use this to lift many other objects. So during the boss fight at the end of my demo, the pillars in the boss arena can be destroyed, and then you can pick them up and smack them. And this is the best way to deal damage to the boss, and almost mandatory, at least with the stats I had during the demo. The problem is that means fighting the boss until he kneels down, basically until he's exhausted, and then turning around, sheathing your sword, pressing L1, focusing on the pillar, pressing the combination of buttons that leads to picking it up, and then controlling your character to interact by slamming. And if that sounds...
Whoa, that's so much! Come on!
Sounds like a lot of steps for something. It's because it is. It's
this is something so simple Asmongold could do it.
Something that in many other games would just be a contextual action of you walk close to a pillar that's been thrown to the ground and you like press square or press triangle and you just smack the dude. And here, this systems-based approach requires you to do all of these different steps to get there. Now, maybe the existence of this system is for immersion and for keeping your options open at any given time, which seems to be something the game stresses, that there is a lot of creative freedom in how you tackle a lot of different things. But it is undeniably clunky and even required in the middle of combat. These same things extend to stuff like menus and UI, with one of the recent highlights from the previews being the use of the memory helmet, which allows you to experience events that happened in the past in a location you're at, but requires you to fumble through a series of radio menus to equip a helmet and then go into the focus mode with the helmet on in order to experience the memories. And there's just a lot of stuff like this where there's a series of steps that you have to take in order for stuff to work. And
yes, because the alternative is a fucking go into survey mode or whatever it was called, look at an item and then scroll through 50 fucking different interactions you could do. Okay? That's kind of worse. There is no perfect solution until we have like virtual reality deep dives. In which case, I firmly believe that everything except single player 1v1 combat, where you feel the pain of being stabbed, is going to become irrelevant. And I personally cannot wait for that world to come through, boys. Let's go!
Maybe the reward for all of that will be worth it. We don't know. There's a very good chance that these complicated controls and the way that the game chooses to allow you to interact with the world will become second nature over the course of the first 10 to 15 hours, and you'll be dipping in and out of focus mode for different contextual actions or to throw out your crazy grappling hook or whatever without a second thought. But I do think,
yeah, most likely, duh,
that this system and its commitment to it is going to have a lot of people bounce off it. Because if you're here exclusively for weird open world character action combat role-playing game, and instead of that you get all of these kind of clunky immersive sim style things that you need to do.
Okay, so there's a massive difference between doing combat and shit and interactive immersive sim type of stuff, okay? The people who don't want to do the immersive sim stuff can choose to not do it, and they're not going to probably be punished for that. You can still do the combat.
In order to get the most out of a combat scenario, or to solve a quest, or to solve one of the many puzzles in the game, maybe you're gonna bounce off it real quick, which is another part of it all. Yes, combat is a core focus of Crimson Desert, and I am 100% on board with that. And if you've ever seen the channel, you know why. There's an Azuna drop. That's it, I'm good. But I feel like I'm in a unique boat where everything that Crimson Desert is putting down, I'm in for. I'm in for a little bit of jank and some strange stuff, but combining that with very rewarding exploration that leads...
Now, will the people complain about this in reality? Yes, there's gonna be people who complain about this, because learning a bunch of different controls can be sometimes tedious and arduous, the same way that learning a bunch of mechanics in the game can be tedious and arduous. But, I mean, again, you either have a good game that has all of this and it's cool, or you have some kind of, brain dead slop and it's bad.
Leads to systemic design and a lot of different puzzles and potentially different ways of solving those puzzles that start to feel closer to ImSim stuff. The sense of being completely lost in a world without any guidance and then just figuring it out. But that is also something that can be tremendously frustrating, and I've said this before. There's a reason that video games have had the yellow paint epidemic. It's because enough people in playtesting complain in games that they don't know what they're doing and they don't know where they're supposed to go or what they can do, and...
Yeah, but that's just because some games are made really bad. Because people who make games fall for the trap. That is very understandable on one hand, but you should be aware of it. That they know what they are intending and doing. You don't know what they are intending and doing. So for the person who thinks of these things, it may seem really understandable because you're the one who thought of it. But for from the outside, it's not understandable, obviously.
Then they get really frustrated. So then they put on yellow paint. And I think it's very easy to look at that and say, well, I don't like yellow paint. I think it's dumb. It's a dumb design idea. The whole idea of signposting is something...
Yep, yellow paint is indeed a dumb idea. Either you hide something it's supposed to be a secret and it's hard to find, or you find ways of highlighting stuff that's supposed to be done in a natural way that people are not going to miss.
Thing that I'm against. And I do think there is some truth to the concept of a very good video game designer knows how to use everything in the environment in order to do signposting in ways that are more organic and fit better and make the player feel clever instead of just putting yellow paint on something. But I think there is another extreme to that, where if there is no signposting and the systems and mechanics of the game are convoluted and potentially obtuse, you are just going to be frustrated at a lot of stuff. And I think Crimson Desert has a high risk of that happening. If you're like me and this immersive world is enough for you to forgive some of that and just go for it, that'll be great. But I don't think that's everybody. And I also don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think some people are looking at this game and potentially thinking that it's going to be an Assassin's Creed RPG style experience.
I have never heard these complaints. Assassin's Creed style, never heard anyone say this. Witcher, a super minor group of people have compared it to the Witcher I know of, but no, not in general, no. Man.
Gigantic map, different ways of traversing it, and then you go from outpost to outpost, liberating stuff and getting your good boy points as you level up and become stronger and go tackle bigger and bigger strongholds. Typical open world fare. And I think those people will be severely disappointed with Crimson Desert. I also think there's a chance that you can make the game very repetitive for yourself if all you want to do is focus on that combat, no matter how much depth there is. And I think that that is one of the key things that might lead to people having a bad experience with the game, which is a game that really doesn't want to hold your hand at all and is this complex, might have some severe pacing issues. It might have a very slow and frustrating and confusing start, and from there, if you don't play by the game's unwritten rules of how you should explore and power up and what you're supposed to undertake, you could find yourself going down a path that makes the game quote-unquote worse. Just because you're...
I mean, that can always happen. I am personally one of those people who has never actually managed to go in the correct direction he's supposed to go in a Fallout game, except New Vegas. Kinda did that. Kinda, you know, still made it halfway through and then I still managed to take a wrong turn. But I definitely did go almost the right way. And every other Fallout game, never have I went in the right direction. Jesus Christ, what's wrong with me? But that's not a problem, okay? This game is gonna have that situation. Crimson Desert is, in fact, gonna have this situation. If you go to an endgame zone, congratulations, shit's gonna one-shot you because this world is not level scaled to you. And if you're gonna be such a goddamn mouth breather that you're gonna complain, oh, I went to the final boss at level 1 and it one shot me, then that's your own issue. And I feel that there's gonna be maybe 5 people in the world that think that that's how you're supposed to play the game. And I'm being generous with the number 5 here. Probably less, a lot less. So if someone has that problem, honestly, it's on them. It's on them. We're currently, this whole video is kind of talking about the super minority of the minority of the minority, okay? The American liberals would lose it if they could be a part of that super minority. In any case, I think none of this is even remotely close to valid concerns, honestly. Anyway, that was Monk Thief 10 out of 10. Bye!